Alright, now that we have a pretty good understanding of the Halo side of things, I wanted to take a look at some of the saber specific things as well. I don't know if you've noticed, but you may have seen the bitmaps.map map that shows up in our maps folder. This is the way that textures used to work in Halo Custom Edition. However, in MCC, they ended up using something called the Ipak instead. And there's a Imeta file as well that references textures inside of this Ipak. So in circumstances when we add something to a map and the textures weren't already in that map in the first place, the engine isn't going to know how to display those textures. So I'm going to create a circumstance in which this happens, and then we're going to use a tool called TextMod to fix some of those missing references. So, in fashion, I'm going to go ahead and open up bloodgulch.map, and this will give us a brief chance to review some of the things we went over in our previous video. I'm going to give this a second to load. Okay, now that Sapien's open, we can go ahead and take a look. Before, when we made this modded pistol, there was already a pistol in this level. So the textures were already a part of it, and we had no issue. Now, what if we were to add something to the scene that wasn't originally in the level? For this example, I'm going to go ahead and add a scenery object. So I'm going to select scenery, edit types, just like before. I'm going to add. I'm going to grab the pelican crashed scenery. This is inside scenery, vehicles, pelican crash.scenery. And the reason I chose this one is just because it's easy to grab the textures. They're all clumped together in one area. And I'm going to place this somewhere easy to find, like right here. And now that I've placed the object, I need to assign it to Pelican Crashed. And you'll see it gets added to the scene. I'm going to go ahead and rotate it a little bit just to make it look crashed. And now that that's in the scene, I'm going to go ahead and save this. That's all I'm going to do in Sapien right now, so I can close out of this for now. So now I'm going to go ahead and compile the map, and we're just going to take a look at what happens to the textures on that pelican. So it compiles, I go ahead and I copy bloodgulch.map and bloodgulch.fmeta into their respective directories. Replace the destination, and then I overwrite the fmeta as well. And once we do this, if we load up Halo, what we see is something like this. You'll notice that the only textures that appear are the detail textures, and I think that's from the Warthog, so that happened to already be on the map. But all the rest of the textures aren't there. So we're going to go ahead and take a look at the Ipak and the Imeta and how we can modify that to get the textures back on here. We need a tool to do this. I'm going to include a link in the description to TextMod. Now, this is a program that I made. It was a proof of concept program, so some things don't work exactly correctly. However, for what we're going to be using it for, it'll work no problem. I already have this downloaded here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to extract this into my working directory here. And once it's installed, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open it up. Alright, so once this loads up, we'll be able to load up the Ipak and take a look at what exactly is going on inside of it. So in File, Open, I'm going to go ahead and navigate to my Halo Master Chief Collection directory. I'm going to go to Halo 1, Prebuild, Packs. I'm going to grab inplace1.ipak. Now, these are all the textures in the game, both Classic and Anniversary, and all of the Classic textures are going to be in inplace1. So we don't need to focus on inplace2 for right now. I'm just going to double click and it's going to decompress and load it up. We'll give it a second. Awesome. Now that it's loaded, we're actually able to see what textures are contained inside of the Ipak here. Now, how the level knows to load what textures inside of the Ipak is by using a file called the Imeta. And to bind an existing Imeta to this program, so that way we're making changes to the Imeta. What we want to do is go to Edit, and we want to bind the Imeta. So this loaded us up where we just were, and inside of here we have bloodgulch.imeta. This is the file that we want to edit to be able to add textures into Bloodgulch. Now we're going to scroll down, and all of the Halo Classic textures are labeled HCE. Now, because of the tag that we used, we want to find vehicles, Pelican, bitmaps, and these are the bitmaps that we need for that model. Now, the way that the naming convention set up for Saber, it uses HCE to prefix all Halo Classic textures. CJB, for example, is going to be the first letter of each folder, and then the last section of it is the actual texture's name. So in our case, we have vehicles, Pelican, bitmap, so we want to find HCE VPB, so that's going to be towards the bottom, so we're going to scroll down. And then once we find that, we want to find detail boilerplate, Pelican decals, Pelican, Pelican Bay multi, and Pelican multi. And those are all right here. So we're just going to go ahead and check these. And now that those are checked, we now told Saber to load those textures when it loads up Bloodgulch. So now we're going to build the Imeta. And I'm just going to go ahead and replace the original. Remember to back everything up before you do this. I have backups of all of the files. And once that's finished, we're going to go ahead and load Halo back up. We're going to load back into our level. And then we'll be able to see the textures applied to the Pelican correctly. There you go. So that's just a brief look into how Saber manages textures. We will go over how to import custom textures, and we'll apply this to campaign. But besides that, that's all I have for today's video. I appreciate you guys listening in, and I hope you enjoyed.